The process of using the straight track fixture is very similar to using our turnout fixtures, in that you place PC board ties into the pockets, rails sit on top of the ties, you solder it all together in place. So I'm just going to run through this. We'll build up a length of track, and I'll show you a few little tips on how to use this fixture. Something I've got into the habit of doing over the years is to quick file the surface of every tie. You can see how shiny that is now, and that actually allows the solder to flow much better. I also like to just do a quick pass along the edge of the tie too. It smooths it out nice. So I'm just going to work my way down the fixture here and get all the ties in. Ties are all in place, and we're ready to solder on a length of rail. So you just take a piece of rail here. I got a full length 36-inch long piece of rail. I'm just going to lay it in on top of the ties. No particular location. I like to leave a little bit of it hanging out over one end. We'll trim this off to fit later whatever we're going to join it up with. And we solder it in place using the same techniques we use on the turnout fixtures. A little bit of solder flux, and we just a little bit of solder on each tie. I'll work my way down here and grab the iron, a little bit of a cleanup. Using the regular 20 thou diameter solder, we solder in place in a few spots here. If you need more detail on soldering, we have a separate video that covers this in great detail. I highly recommend you watch that one. So there's a few ties soldered in place. I'm just going to go ahead and solder the rest of the ties in place. Okay, this rail is all soldered in place to each of the ties, and I'm going to solder the next rail in place. What I like to do is stagger my rail joints. So I'm going to actually back this up quite a ways, 2 or 3 ties at least. Maybe I'll go even one more here. And I center the rail right on the tie, like that. There, I've got the end of the rail is centered on the tie, and when I put the next piece of rail into the fixture, I'll put it on here, and that rail joint will be right over the tie, and it allows us to build lengths of track without having to use any rail joiners. For now, I'm not going to put any solder here. I'm not going to solder this one in place until I add the next piece of rail to it. So I'm going to start down here and solder this up. And just like when you're soldering with our turnout fixtures, it's very important that you keep the rail flat on the tie. So as I'm soldering, I'm always holding the rail down as the solder freezes, and I do that to make 100% sure that rail is flat on the tie. If it's not, it can kind of tip over a bit, and it'll affect the track gauge. I've got a couple started. I'm just going to go on and solder the rest of these in place. We got them all soldered in place. So what I can do is I'll take this piece of track out of the fixture now, and it stays nice and straight. I'm going to reload the fixture with another set of ties, move this down, and then solder in the next length. Okay, our ties are all loaded up and we're ready to go. You might notice I've left a couple tie pockets here empty, and what I use those for is to align the piece of track. So I'll drop those in, push the rail down, and I'm ready to solder it in. So we've soldered all those in place. This piece can come out. And you can see how long this is getting. It's a nice long straight piece of track. I can just keep adding to this to make this piece as long as I need. What I'm going to do, I'll do a quick demonstration here and show you how to join pieces together. I'll do a rail joint here. So I've put this in position so it's halfway on this PC board tie. You can see this one here sticks out kind of in the middle. So what I want to do is I'm going to trim this back right into the center here, so when I put the next piece of rail in, I've got my rail joint right on top of a PC board tie. Using my scribe, I'm just going to by eye mark the approximate center location of this tie pocket, like that. You can see I've left a little scratch mark on there, and then I'm just going to nip this off at that location using rail cutters, just like that. Check, see how we did here back in the fixture. That looks pretty good. That's centered over here. So now I'm going to put in these ties and a couple pieces of rail and solder it all up. And he's got a nice joint right on top of a PC board tie. Now I'm going to solder this one together first, and then I'm going to come back and solder this one. That'll just help it be a Makes it a little bit more stable that way. Bit of solder, again holding it down while the solder freezes. Now I can put a little bit of flux on our rail joint here and solder it in place. A little bit on both sides, make sure I get some on the rail. There, and that's a nice smooth joint and no rail joiners. Okay, there we go. Now we've added in 2 more lengths of rail, and we can just keep feeding this through the fixture with another series of ties and other pieces of rail and make this length of track as long as we need. To get out of the fixture, you just simply lift up on the rail and it'll pop right out. You don't want to fight too much with it because you might bend it, but you can see it lifts out really easily. And there's a nice long length of straight track, just like that.